Good afternoon and welcome to Locked in Stitches. Let's see. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to Locked in Stitches. How are we all doing this afternoon? Let me just see if I've got mine up here and working. Good afternoon. Okay. Yes, I do. That is wonderful. And that now means I can go like that. Okay, how are we going? So I was just eating some afternoon tea before we started. Okay, how are we doing this over, guys? Hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. It is a beautiful day here in Canberra. A little bit windy, but there's sunshine, which is just so beautiful. But, so I've just come back from Melbourne, and of course I had to do some stocking up while I was there. So you guys know exactly how much I love Kingstar thread. Just up on the website, I've just finished putting them up. We've got 3 new, well actually we've got 4 new blues and greens, and 2 pinky mauves. So these have just gone up on the website, and they are perfect for the divas. That's the reason that I really wanted to show them to you this afternoon, because those divas go so well with just a touch of bling. So you'll see the one that I'm doing today, I'm going to use some red metallic because I'm doing some ruby accents on Elouise. I love Elouise. I think she is one of the most beautiful of the designs. She's the one that I always go to because she's got her hand up against the face. She's got all of that sort of stuff going on. And I can see we've got Christine, and yes, you'll see I've moved around where the camera is, and I'm just getting all ready to getting used to where everything is. But we've got Kathy Odekirken is with us. Thank you very much for joining us, Kathy. And Christine Annabelle is watching as well. So thank you very much. So Elouise has a lot of overstitching because the premise is her hair is quite curly. A lot of that curl is given by satin detail within the design itself. So it's not a sit down and you're going to get her done in an hour. She does take a little longer, but I have sped that up a little so that you guys are not bored. So let's come along and look at what we've got. As you can see here, I've got my wash away thread, and I am basting that outline. Now the other thing that I've done on this, and again I've included a couple of extra stuff ups because I know how much everybody likes my stuff ups, but what I've been finding with these blocks is because I'm not basting them in, and because the design is so close to the edge, what I am finding is that the when it comes to the satin, sometimes it's just puckering up a little bit. So I've discovered a little fix for it, and that I'm going to share with you as we go along. Now I ran out of my previous color fabric, so I am doing this my skin fabric. So I'm doing my skin in a slightly different color, and again utilizing both the front and back side of that fabric to get different textures and tones. And what you will notice with this design is you've got both you've got some inside little stitching bits as well. Now a trick when you are trimming the inside around embroidery is to trim those inside pieces first. And that's because if you trim all of the outside first, when you get the scissors in to trim the inside, sometimes you can pull the outside edges to the point where your fabric starts to come a little bit away. One of the things that I love about this project is just how much it just looks so blank right up until you start adding in those extra details. Now, this green I thought was just beautiful. And I always think green and purple go so, so well together. So, what's everybody been up to this week? Anybody doing anything exciting? As I said, I've been down in Melbourne for the last 2 weeks and had lots and lots of fun. Excuse me while I open up my water here and spill water all over my desk. Always a good start. And so you can see here where I'm coming in and adding that purple in. Now, I had a question this month on why do I do all the fabric laying down first and not do lay a piece down, then do all the satin around it. And it's really because I'm a little bit lazy, and in my mind, this is quicker. If I did every piece separately, I would have to change a lot more thread colors, is my theory. Whereas because I keep just one thread color all the way until we get to the satin stitching, and you can see now we're up to Elouise's hair, and today I'm doing golden hair. And so this is a flower print, but the reason that I chose this print was because I feel like those flowers, the curves on them will emulate the curls within a hairstyle. Now, really interesting point. Tonight I'm going to be sitting down with young Grace, my 17-year-old daughter, who has very, very curly hair, bordering on quite frizzy. And over the years, we have tried everything to the point of when we straighten it, it just looks like we have trouble straightening it to the point that it looks nice. It just seems to still frizz that little bit. But I was watching something on YouTube the other week, and it was doing African American hair, and they were saying they use a silicone product. And I thought, well, I've got a silicone product. I've got thread serum. So we gave it a go. Just a couple of drops of thread serum made an amazing difference on Grace's hair. So we now use thread serum for Gigi's hair as well. And it's allowed us then to come through and not only sort of straighten the hair, but it's giving such a gloss to it as well. So that's my just, useless little fact for the day. I thought you guys would appreciate that one. Okay, now this one is a difficult one to trim just because of where it's sitting. And so I did have to take it out of the hoop and cut in. You will notice that at no point am I cutting on my lap. I am always cutting on a perfectly flat surface. So many times I see people asking, why doesn't mine look the same? Why doesn't mine look as good? Why? And the reason truly is because you are not treating the embroidery the way it needs to be treated. Oh, Leslie Beach, thank you. I know, I just love how she's turning out. Now, I am using metallic blue thread here. I decided to try, and the grey is troublesome in the background here. To be perfectly honest, it's amazing how much colour that grey absorbs. And I'm having a lot of trouble finding the right colours for the background. But that is a metallic blue that I've got in my stash, and I just thought it's a great opportunity to use that up, or to use some of that up. And adds a little bit more bling to the overall project. And yeah, you can absolutely see why Elouise is one of my favourites. Okay. But I do, and it's one of those things, if you don't want all of those background pieces, if you don't want those Art Deco elements in the background, just don't stitch them. You have the ultimate control. It's always your project. Okay. So yeah, I really thought the dark blue would be bright enough to use, but yeah, just not quite as bright as I thought it might be. So then we can move on to our next colour. And our next colour is going to be surprise, 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 because I stuffed it up. Next colour is going to be our purple. And that's just all a case of me forgetting whether or not where I put the green and where I put the purple, because I ummed and ahed a lot over which one to do where. And I've gone probably 2 or 3 shades darker than the fabric itself, because I did want some of that stitching to stand out. And I'd noticed that somebody put up their picture of, and I'll see if I can find it and share it with you guys. Here we go. No, that one's mine. Somebody else put a picture of one of the recent media. Maybe that's where I need to be. No, I was sure somebody's put their picture of the gorgeous Diva up, but I cannot for the life of me find it. But the colours they used were just amazing. And I'm loving seeing how everybody's colours are just so different, because that's what it's all about. Now, somebody was asking me how I picked out my background fabric. And that was really easy. I knew that I didn't want, because I've done them already in black background, and I've done them already in a white background. So I knew I didn't want either of those. And so then it was just which to go, and I went to my local shop and I saw this grey, and I thought the print on it was kind of perfect just for that Art Deco linear glitch like sort of a thing. So that's where I've ended up with the grey fabric. Now what I want to do this month though is try and decide what I'm going to use as the borders. And that's going to be interesting. I've got no idea at all on what colours to put through as a border for this one. So what did everybody else get up to on the weekend, during this week? We drove home from Melbourne yesterday, so that was sort of most of our day. And today we're just sort of playing catch up and laundry and all the fun things. But last night we celebrated 22 years since we had met. So I met Edward on a blind date. It was actually a fix-up from a friend. And as you do when you go out for dinner with girlfriends, you bemoan the fact that there's nobody, no good men left in the world. And yeah, I was working in Melbourne for the weekend and she set me up with this guy. And I thought, well, you know, he's a nice guy, but, you know, we live in different states. And the next day he sort of, you know, called to make sure I got home okay. And we started talking and, yeah, I moved in with him. My contract with who I was working with was up. So the rest is history. So my comment to him last night was, you know, I hope you've learned your lesson. And, you know, next time, don't call a chick the next day. Okay. And you can see, as you start adding the satin stitches, they really do give that detail around that you need. You get that, you know, it takes it from being a very flat project into something that is much more almost three-dimensional. Now, the other thing that you can do, of course, with this, with the elements around each design, is you could really easily put a little bit of mylar underneath and really have them pop and bling out. And I must consider doing that on one. Okay, so we've all been here. It happens to all of us. I've got a bird's nest. I'm going to take my denester blade and cut away. And you'll see that because I've used the denester blade there, I didn't have to unhoop it. But now I've got to come through, work out where, get all the excess threads out of there, clean it. And yeah, my little micro brush is really getting a workout there. And then I want to make sure that there's no marks on the bobbin case. Okay, once I've done that, I want to go back to where the problems arose and then just continue stitching. And look, you know, it happens to everybody, but I just wanted to take the time to show you guys how I would handle that. And really just how good those denester blades work. Those little scalpels are kind of just perfect. Having said that, where I was the other day, my girlfriend Lynn has a bread knife, and she uses a bread knife to cut away when she has a bird's nest. And I thought that was kind of cool as well. Okay. And we stitch it around and around and around. So the metallics that I've used in this one, because I hadn't picked up all the new metallics at this point, so naturally I'm just using the cream, which is the my skin tone at the moment. But the metallics that I've used on this one, I've used a gold, as I said, I've used blue, and then I'm also using a ruby red. Now this is one that I got ages ago, and it's the one that I use when I've got to do little bits of Christmas stitching. But I thought, how cool would it be for my Elouise to have, instead of a silver or a gold necklace, to have a ruby necklace. So that was my thinking. Now, lots and lots of stitches here. I can still remember when I digitized this one. Just the thought process of going all around each different element here so that the stitches all covered up each other's start and finish points, but it wasn't too dense, so that it wasn't too too troublesome for the stitching. And I really love how this ended up. And I'd give a left hand for the elegant fingers that Elouise has ended up with. Okay, and Bonbon on YouTube's asking, what machine is that? It is a gorgeous design, and I'm really proud of it, Bonbon. Thank you so, so much. But I am using the Janome CM17. So this is the new machine that Janome have just bought out this year, and its largest hoop size is 18 inches. So it's kind of a sexy one. Okay. Now, one of the things that I cannot believe at the moment, I had somebody again asking me this week about a machine that they'd been, and it was a new user, and they were looking at what machine to get, and their dealer was trying to talk them into to a machine, basic starter model, no issue at all with that. I'm a huge fan of getting what you can afford and not putting yourself into strife for that. However, this woman was being encouraged to buy a machine with a 4x4 hoop, and I disagree that the dealer had the customer's best interest at heart in this particular case. If the absolute minimum that I would ever go was a 5x7 hoop. If you can only afford a 4x4 hoop, I would encourage you to look at either a second-hand machine or a to continue saving for another couple of months. And look, you know, I'm a huge fan of, you know, I want it now, now, now. But you are going to be so disappointed in a 4x4 design. I mean, there are times, and there's a couple of projects that I'm working on at the moment that I don't have the ability to use a 5x7 hoop. It's got to be an 8x12 hoop. Most of the things I try and do with a 5x7 version, but I do not think that you would be happy with a smaller hoop like that. Okay, so now we have finished our skin and we are up to doing the eye and the eye detail. And I know I talk about this every month, but it is my recommendation that when you are doing eyes and facial features, you don't go for a really harsh black. Instead, I've gone for the darkest brown that I have in my stash. Okay. And once again, it's just as I love how she comes alive as we continue stitching her out. And as we add in all of those extra details. Okay, so next up, we're going to do this khaki-ish sort of a green. Now, remember when I was telling you that I was worried that as I do the satin stitch around here, it's going to pick up the fabric. So what I'm doing is, and excuse the freckle on my hand there, I'm using my quilt clips and I'm using that to secure the fabric and the stabilizer together so that as I stitch around the base, it's not going to pick up more fabric than it should be able to. So just a really little quick tip of the day. I mean, you've seen me use the T-pins, and T-pins are great when you're using cutaway, but the T-pin is just going to tear through the stabilizer. So using those quilt clips was actually a better solution in this case. And I do love it when fabric and thread match up together well. So what projects are people working on? This week I'm going to be doing some videos on bags. I've also got coming up next week in our Facebook group, we're going to be doing the bubble baskets, and I know you are going to love those. So you can see here as it goes along the bottom, there's been no puckering up or picking up of extra little fabric, which sometimes does happen when you're doing satin stitch. So those quilt clips have worked perfectly for what I needed them to do. Okay, now we are on to our hair. Now, once again, I've gone maybe a shade or two darker, or I've tried to pick up the darker of the shade within the hair. just again to give extra texture. Murphy's Law says you have to replace your bobbin. And at the same time, because I know I'm going to be doing lots of satin, I might as well pop those clips at the top as well. Okay. So we do have overstitching, and we've got it, the overstitching is in a curl. Oh, it's actually like a snail sort of an outline, and it's just subtle. It's not a lot. Once again, I'm just trying to add in some depth to what we're doing. Now, the other thing that I did while I was away, let's see if I can find a photo of it. I'm not even sure I took a photo of it, having said that. But I did lots of rope embroidery. Because where I was staying, it asked me if I would teach a class. And I had lots of fun, and we did a really interesting, no, I definitely don't have photos, but we did some really interesting projects, including a rope bag. So I'm thinking we might have to do another rope sewing project before the end of the year as well. How many of you have used rope for embroidery before? And good afternoon, Lynette Dixon. Speaking of people who made me do work last week, it was Lynette's house that I was at. And I had a lovely time. Okay, so Bonbon's saying on YouTube, she's seen, or they've seen the 17, the MC17, and how the hoops load differently from the other Janome machines. Have you used the others that load on from the back? Yes, I have. So I have been using Janome's for the past, well, for embroidery for the past 21 years. So up until this one, they were all back loaders. And that didn't bother me. That it never really was something that, although I will say, I find this a little bit easier on my shoulder. I find the left hand load to be a little bit easier on my shoulder. But when I was at Lynn's, she's got a 17, so that's what I was using there. Not a 17, she's got a 15,000. And yeah, it's like coming home. It's like, you know, just sitting there and, you know, having fun with old friends. Okay, so now we're on to the satin element, and what you'll notice around here is as we come through, there's going to be some extra little elements. And, you know, look, I love Janome. I am a Janome maker, and, you know, I do love my machine and the technology I digitize with Janome. Having said that, there are beautiful machines out there with all brands, and we all get very very parochial about our brand. And I how many times have you guys heard me say they're like children? They all do great things, and they all do things that tick you off. So it's finding yeah, the one that works best for you. If I was looking for a new machine, I would be looking, and I wasn't very brand specific. There's a couple of things that I'd be looking at. The first thing I'd be looking at is what my friends have, and by that I mean the people who you sew with. If you go to groups, think about what the different machines the people in those groups use. And the reason I say that is because what I see within a group setting is that if a group all have a certain brand and you have a different brand, it's harder to get help within that group because they all know their brand. Not that that should be a defining factor. I would also be looking at what your local dealer sells, recommends, and supports. You want something where the local dealer is going to be able to help you when something goes wrong. And I was discussing this with I was having a chat with a retailer of industrial machines this week, or last week, and he was saying one of the huge issues that he has at the moment is people will buy online and then they'll want to come to him and have him service the machine, and they can't understand why they've got to pay for that service. And he said, well, you didn't buy it off me. I'm not the one who's warrantying it. You know, and from an industrial point of view, this is a call-out thing as well. And yeah, it's becoming an issue. You need to be able to have support for when something goes wrong. And, you know, look, nobody's perfect. I do like to include my basic stuff-ups, but if I do something, you know, totally heinous, there's not a hope in hell I'm going to show you guys that. Just not going to happen. Not that it has happened on this machine yet. But yeah, it's, so look for support, and then think about what you want to do with it. So if you want to do, you know, quilting, edge-to-edge quilting, then you're going to need something that's going to support those sizes. If you want to do, you know, massive quilt box, think about that. Just think about what you're going to do. And having said that, so many times I have purchased a machine and not thought about those things. So this is just coming with experience and things that I wish that I'd done. Now, don't those curls just look gorgeous now with the satin stitching? You can see that she's really starting to come together. Okay. And now we'll go, and our hair is all stitched. So now we can do our next color, which is going to be our metallic red. So I'm going to use a couple of different reds here. And you can see, now the reason that didn't thread is probably because my needle is getting a little bit old. And you can see it's done, you know, 2 hours of stitching here, plus whatever I was doing before then. So that's not unusual. I'm basically too stingy, and I just didn't have the energy at the time to change it. So I'm leaving it on until I finish this design. Okay. Oh, now you know what I'm going to be able to make one of my bubble baskets out of? I'm going to be able to make that out of Barbie fabric. Because I bought Barbie fabric last week. I bought Star Wars fabric. I'm doing well here. Saw a very interesting post the other day on copyright. And it was done on one of the machine embroidery groups, and it was done for machine embroiderers. So we know that there's a brand of machine out there that does Disney. That when they sell you that machine, so many people believe that that machine will because they bought the machine, they can stitch things out for profit. That is absolutely not the case, and it says in the paperwork on your machine that they are for personal use only. The big one, certainly in Australia, is I'm not sure if it's the same in America, is doing sort of football club designs. And I know that one branch of the AFL football, they are really cracking down on people selling items with logos that have been digitized and put on there. So it's, and it annoys me as a digitizer. I find it one of the most frustrating things when I see people selling designs that they've digitized as Barbie or as, and you know, I can come on here onto Etsy, and if I type into Etsy machine embroidery designs, the first things that come up, oh, that's lovely, 70,000 brother embroidery designs. That's always classy. Cartoons, so Disney, Star Wars, all of that. I actually expected Barbie to be the first thing that would pop up, so I'm actually a little bit impressed by that. Okay, so we've done our metallic red, and now we're on to our lips and fingernails. And all of these women, I am using the exact same thread color. Now, this is what I call quite disgusting. That is just, so somebody is selling embroidery software made by manufacturers for $45. So it's obviously a hack. It's, now, I don't know, it's probably going to have ransomware on it in some way, shape or form, but I'm still quite disappointed in the fact that they're doing it at all. Okay, I will say I'm impressed that that Barbie is not the first colour or the first design that's showing up there. Okay, and you can see how gorgeous those lips and the fingernail polish looks. And they've both been done in satin to give it that extra bit of luxy sort of a feel. So now I'm going to do my gold, and the gold that I'm using on this, I'm going to use, it's quite a pale gold, and I'm going to use it on my headband and on my bracelet and on my dress. But yes, what you'll find is, oh, Bonbon, great question. So Bonbon's tried winding their own bobbins for embroidery, and you've had a couple of problems. Look, I like pre-wound, and the reason I like pre-wound is because back in the olden days, an embroidery machine only had one motor. These days, generally your bobbin winder has a separate motor on it. And I blew out the motor from winding too many bobbins. So I am a pre-wound kind of a gal. However, I sell bobbin winders that wind a really nice tight bobbin, and not just from me, you can get them other places as well. My answer would be, if you have bobbin thread, I would use it up. After I had used it up, I would then use pre-wounds. So, whoops days. Use up what you have. Now, having said that, I've got a whole lot of pre-wounds that that are in size L, which doesn't sell as well as size A. So for my personal use, I'm going to rewind a whole lot of those on, so an L bobbin onto an A bobbin, because the bobbin fill is the same. Now, interesting question that's just come through from Lynn Dixon is, so if I've got my Barbie fabric, can I then sell something that I've made with it? Yes. My understanding of the law, and remember, I am not a lawyer, I have never been to law school, but I have watched a lot of crime shows. So my understanding is that when you are purchasing that fabric, the and this is my understanding of the way the law works, is so the copyright has been paid by the manufacturer of the fabric, and when you are making something, you can use that fabric, but you can only use it once. Like, you know, you can't photocopy the fabric and use it 10 different times, if that makes sense. So my belief is that yes, you can sell items that you have made with licensed fabric. And so, for instance, in Australia, I noticed at Spotlight the other week, they've got fabric in different AFL teams, because I was looking for my husband's team, but they didn't have it. Then I could make him something, or friends of his something. So my understanding is that yes, you can use licensed fabric and sell the item that you are making. And Bonbon, the main thing with that suggestion of using up what you've got is just that I am a huge fan of not wasting stuff, and I would hate to have anybody waste. What's the problem that you're having? Is it just not winding a nice tight bobbin? Is it the quality of the bobbin fill? Because I know one of the reasons that we use or that I like pre-wounds is just that they are so much thinner than even like a bobbin fill, like on a normal spool. I think one of the funnest things that I ever had was I had a lovely lady who was complaining about how many bobbins she used, and it took me forever to work it out. She was changing her bobbin every time she changed her thread colour because she thought she had to use a matching fill, and she was doing quite a dense design and it had a lot of colours in it. And so it was quite bulky then from the back as well, because she was changing her thread colours every time. I mean, it looked lovely on the back. It looked much nicer than my stuff looks on the back. Now, the thread that I've used here, I don't know whether you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I was talking about how I was using one of the Wonderfill metallics, and I really wanted to test it to see how it went. So today, as you can see, it is actually shredding a little more than I would be happy with it doing. Okay, Bonbon, I think I've got a solution for you. But what it so it stitches beautifully, but it does shred more often than the King Star does. Okay, so Bonbon's got a 15,000, creates the nests underneath. Now, when it does that, does the black bobbin case jump out of alignment, and you've got to sort of reset it, and it makes that horrible noise. Because if that's the case, and I'm not sure if I can show it here on my 17, let me see. Oh, how pretty is that looking though? All that lovely metallic on there. It just does add the bling that you need. Okay, yes, I can show you exactly what I think I need to. Okay, so, Bonbon, once we've finished this next colour, I am going to show you what I think is happening with your machine. Thankfully, I have a wonderful relationship with the guy who fixes my machine. He's a local guy. He comes to my house, and if he can't fix it on my workbench, he then takes it away with him. But he is so gracious about sharing with me what's happening and what I'm doing wrong. Because fundamentally, I'm an incredibly nosy person, and I don't mind doing something wrong. I just want to know what it is that I'm doing so that I don't do it next time. And he's the one who's showed me this trick, so I will share it with you, and hopefully we'll be able to fix your machine. But yeah, I've found pre-wounds work better, but it's the pre-wound or not pre-wound is not the problem here. So let's come through and we'll finish our necklace. And then I will share it with you. Okay, so there we've got our jewels, and now we're going to do the beautiful clasp on our bracelet. And ta-da! Don't you just things work? Okay, so, and here we have my beautiful finished Elouise. Absolutely loving how she has turned out, and all I'm now going to do is come around with my washcloth and pat down those stitches, and then I'll remove the excess stabilizer. So looking at so next week we're going to do bubble baskets. I just want to finish up, and then I'm going to show for anybody who wants to see what I'm going to do to suggest to Bonbon how to fix their machine. So hopefully coming up next week will be and that's my Barbie fabric that I was talking about, and then I've got Jurassic Park as well, but they are cross-body bags. So what I've done, and I'm going to show you how I then make custom straps as well. So what I've done is a 3-zip, 3 pockets, one on the back as well that's hidden, and that's going to be a new one. The other one that I've been playing with is this beautifully, so all quilted and patterned in the hoop, and then we put it together with the sewing machine. So I've made this out of a beautiful piece of leather, and I've learnt my lesson. I'm off to shop for something a little bit thinner because this was just a little bit too thick. So for those who aren't interested, please feel free to say au revoir, and we'll catch you next time. But I'm going to show you what is happening when that bobbin keeps on jumping out of the machine. Okay, also just had to make sure that I've got audio, and Anne Conway's with us as well. Good afternoon, my darling Anne. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken off my plate. So we've all had it happen to us where things get messed up around here, and it does happen a little bit more often with the I found with the 15,000 is this bobbin holder jumps out of its place, and you get that horrible crunching noise. So when that happens, pull everything apart, and what's happening is, so these machines, these embroidery machines are put together by an individual. So if Bob is screwing my machine together and Steve's screwing your machine together, it is very much based on what Bob perceives as being correct and what Steve perceives as being correct. But where your issue is, Bonbon, is in this screw here. And we are talking 1/4 of a millimeter. You just need to unscrew that and just push this little bit here up 1/4 millimeter, not very far at all, so that that bobbin case cannot get past. And that is going to solve 99% of your problems. Tighten it up and tighten it up well. Like I would be using my little stubby set. I don't need to alter mine, so I'm not going to. But you think of the pressure that this puts on it. It's okay that moves over time as well. But I think you will find that that is going to solve most of your problems there. Okay, so I hope that one works for everybody. As always, thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next week. Until then, have a stitching day. Bye.